how do you make the air flow across the car,
Okay.
right? So that's the coefficient of drag. And in this table, you see that, well, the lower is better, right? Because that translates in lower power to overcome
Okay.
the force, which means lower consumption.
Welcome back to the VWIDTalk podcast. We are your hosts, Jan and Wes. And thank you so much for being here and subscribing. Of course, in addition to being here on YouTube, where you can see what we're showing you with all the visuals, you can catch us on Overdrive and Spotify and on Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcast. And so today, Jan had this really cool idea to look at EV efficiency. And we're going to get kind of technical, but we promise it's not boring. What are the things that affect your driving range in an EV? And spoiler alert, they're the same things that affect your driving range in a regular gasoline car, an ICE car, we call it here, for internal combustion engine. So Jan, what did you figure out here for what affects efficiency?
Yeah, so let's talk about 3 topics. Let's compare the efficiency of EVs to the internal combustion engine cars. Let's
Okay.
look at the energy density of the gasoline. Then we look at aerodynamics and drag, because we explain why this is a theme with EVs. And then we'll look at the pie chart of how the energy is consumed in an EV, and if you want to consume the energy, or if you want to plan ahead, how to do that.
Okay. All right. I'm interested.
So let's start with a quick quiz here. Well, maybe
Oh,
2
no.
quizzes. So
Pop
Wes,
quiz.
yeah. So if you would have 5-gallon tank of gas, which is
Okay.
roughly 19-20 liters,
Okay.
or equivalent energy, how far would a Golf GTI or Golf drive versus an ID4 drive? So which one would drive further on 5-gallon equivalent energy?
Well, I'm going to guess that if it's equivalent energy, the electric car is going to drive a lot farther.
And do you
Right?
think it's twice, or it's more than twice further?
Probably more than twice. How much more than twice? Whoa. Okay, a lot more than twice.
4 times as more.
4 times as far. Okay.
And the reason is that the EVs are more efficient. They
Okay.
have higher than 90% efficiency. Internal combustion cars have 30 to 40% efficiency, and the rest of the power that is burned from gasoline is turned into waste heat.
Okay.
Now, the benefit of this waste heat, obviously, is that during winter, you can let the waste here into the cabin, thus heating the cabin, and thus you don't need any additional energy.
Okay.
You don't need to burn additional energy because your engine already produces it.
But it also heats in a gas car. It also heats up your ICE engine to a better operating temperature. Whereas
Exactly.
the same thing with an EV, you've got to heat up your batteries and your motor yourself.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Exactly.
Wow, that's more than I thought. Okay, great.
So that's the first quiz. Now, here's a second quiz. So if you would do a full tank of gas on the Golf, and you would charge your ID4 to the full charge, how much energy is captured in each of the cars?
Okay, so I think that gasoline. So I've been reading a lot about this. So because airplanes can't use batteries yet because they're not energy dense enough. So you're carrying a lot more weight without as much energy. So I'm going to guess that the Golf is carrying a lot more energy. The gasoline's higher energy density per gallon equivalent. You're probably carrying a lot more energy with you in the Golf, but the ID4 could go farther if they had the same amount of energy. Am I right?
Yes. So
Yes.
okay. You're spot on. So in the Golf, the 13-gallon tank, 50-liter tank, is roughly half a megawatt hour. So imagine if we had a half a megawatt hour in our cars, we could drive over 1,500 miles, right? That would be crazy.
Wait, is that right? Yeah. Well, okay. Wow. Because that would be, what is
6 times more?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. That really hammers home the efficiency. Okay. So the real problem with EVs right now, it's not problem, but the problem is that the battery, you can't get as much battery as you have. If we could just turn the gas into a battery, we would have crazy range cars. They're very, very efficient. We just have the equivalent of about a two gallon, 4-liter tank in our car.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
So the two learnings is that internal combustion engine cars are less efficient. They waste around 70% of the heat. And
Okay.
the gasoline has much higher energy density than most EV batteries today. Well, of
Okay.
course, we are all hearing about solid state batteries and the new battery technology, but
Right.
we'll see when it will come and how energy dense these would be.
Okay. All right.
So here is a actually fun fact because so if you would be, well, maybe that's another quiz. So if you would be an automaker who makes internal combustion engine cars and you would want to increase the efficiency of that car, right? What would you do? Well, you would probably try to work on the engine because that is
Oh,
where
okay.
the biggest loss is, right? That's where your 70% of heat or 70% of power is transformed into waste heat.
Okay.
Because this doesn't exist in like because EVs are way more efficient. There is another problem that EV makers have to deal with for
Okay.
EVs, which is aerodynamics and drag.
Okay. So it's not that aerodynamics and drag are not a problem for ICE cars. It's that the engine efficiency or inefficiency overwhelms that to the extent to where it makes more sense that they're just not to the point where they have to worry about aerodynamics. But EVs are so efficient that getting small gains in aerodynamics are going to really improve the efficiency. Is
Exactly,
that good?
exactly,
Okay.
precisely. Yes, and plus the good news is that, for example, the Tiguan got some of the design elements from the ID4 or from EVs because as automakers learn to use these tricks, they can apply them to internal combustion engine cars. So
Okay. All right.
EVs make ICE cars better, which is kind of ironic, but hey, it is what it is, right?
We'll take whatever efficiency we can get. Okay, good.
Exactly. All right, so let's get
Ah,
in a
physics.
little bit into the physics behind this problem. So when you drive a car, there is a force that tries to slow down your car, right? That
Okay.
force is called drag force, which is exactly what it's called, which is it's the aerodynamic force. It's the
Okay.
air that is pushing against your car, trying to stop it.
Okay. So
Now,
F sub D is the drag force.
so
Okay.
that's the drag force, yes,
Okay.
and it is an. Let's don't worry about these other variables here, but
Okay.
let's worry about the speed now. The
Okay. So the V is
v
velocity.
squared
Okay.
is velocity. That's your speed. So
Okay.
the force quadratically grows with your speed. So
With the square of your speed. Okay.
if you double your speed, then the force is four
It's
times
four
higher.
times. Okay. Got it. Got it.
But that's not all, right? The vehicle has to overcome the drag to either speed up or maintain the constant speed.
Okay.
The problem here, or the challenge, is that the power that the vehicle has to spend is now cube of your speed.
Okay. So the force of the drag varies with the square of your speed, but the power required to overcome that force varies with the cube of your speed. So that means that what does that mean exactly? For if you go twice as fast, instead of taking four times the force, if four times the power, it takes eight times the power.
The power, exactly. That's
Okay.
it. It is crazy, and the reason why we talk about the vehicle power is that it is directly related to the consumption, right? Because power is related to the car consumption. So you need
Okay.
8 times more power from the extract from the battery to drive at that twice
Wow.
higher speed.
Okay.
Okay, so let's look at those other elements here. So raw,
Okay.
it's air density that is
Okay.
constant,
Depending on, I guess, altitude or something, right?
altitude
But
and temperature. So in winter, the air might be more dense, so
yeah,
that might the power that you
yeah.
need it might be a little higher.
And so people that aren't math or physics nerds, that's not a P, that is the Greek letter rho,
Raw,
RHO.
yeah.
Okay, got you. Okay.
And the interesting point is that this equation is an equation for any object
Oh, okay.
being pushed through the air. So whether it's a brick, whether it's a big car box, whether it's a car, whether it's an ICE car or
Okay.
EV, it's the same thing.
Okay. All right.
There are two variables that the manufacturers can control. Let's maybe talk about the frontal area. If you would put a light in the front of the car and project its shape to the wall behind it,
Oh, good.
then
Okay.
that's the area. That's the frontal area.
Okay.
And you might guess that the frontal area is probably higher for ID Buzz than for ID4.
Yeah. Or for a truck, I mean, it'd be even
Or for
higher.
a truck. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. So the frontal area is mostly given by the style, the type of the car.
Okay.
The drag coefficient is, however, something that the manufacturers can control. And they have different tricks in their sleeves to lower this drag coefficient
Okay.
when they built the car design. And that is one of the variables that has been discussed has been quite discussed specifically with EVs.
Okay. But you're saying the frontal area is not really something they can control that much, other than in a particular style of vehicle is
Yes.
just going to have
Yes.
an SUV is going to have larger frontal area than a sedan, which is going to have larger frontal area than a I don't know, a small hatch or something like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Okay. And then a truck is going to be worse, and a semi truck is going to be the worst.
Even the worst.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And so they can control that based on what style of car it is. But really, once you've made that, it's really how do you make it more slippery, right? What's the coefficient of
Yes.
drag?
The slickness. How
Slickness.
many
Okay.
vortices you're eliminating from the design?
Okay.
How slick do you make the car, or how do you make the air flow across the car?
Okay.
Right. So that's the coefficient of drag. And in this table, you see that, well, the lower is better, right? Because that translates in lower power to overcome
Okay.
the force, which means lower consumption.
Okay.
So you see that a typical SUV, it could be around 0.38.
Okay. Wow, that's higher than I thought. Okay.
And then for our ID4, it's roughly 0.28. It's a little better than Ioniq 5. And I was quite surprised about this. It's in the same, within
Really?
0.01, same as ID Buzz, right?
That is surprising. I
Yes.
would have thought that the buzz would be much worse.
Yes.
So with the buzz, it's not the drag coefficient that's the problem. It's the frontal area that's the problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So for the ID Buzz, it is the frontal area. Exactly. Spot on.
Okay.
And then when we talk different car style, like sedans, right?
Okay.
When you see what Mercedes was able to do with EQS, like 0.2,
Wow.
Ioniq 6 and Audi 6 e-tron, they're 0.21. And so,
Yeah.
and even ID7, right? Like these cars have even better consumption because
Right.
they have the lower frontal area, and they also the manufacturers were also able to make the coefficient of drag lower.
Yeah. So just for kicks, Jan and I looked this up to compare what a sedan from a few years ago, just an Audi A4 sedan has a drag coefficient, a C sub D of what was it, 0.27?
Yeah, it was somewhere here. It was somewhere
So
in this ballpark of now EV SUVs, right?
right. So that's the incredible point here is that EV SUVs now have as good a drag coefficient as a former like an ICE sedan.
Sedans.
And the EV sedans, these numbers are phenomenal. The 0.2
Yes.
and the 0.21,
Yep.
what Hyundai's done with the Ioniq and Mercedes and Audi with the e-tron, I mean, those are incredible drag coefficients. In addition to having a small frontal area. So no wonder they get such great range.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for putting the chart together. That looks really amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So this is the summary of what we've talked about, that if you double your speed from 30 to 60 miles an hour, so if you would drive from 60 30 to 80, or from 40 to 80,
yeah, 30 to 60 or 40 to 80. Yeah, okay.
You need to use 8 times the power to fight the air.
And that's what you were showing us with that equation earlier, where the power to overcome varies with the cube. So that's
Cube
8
of the
times.
speed.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. And what we know, that EVs are more efficient in lower speeds, because that's where the drag coefficient, or the aerodynamic drag isn't that significant, but
Okay.
also because of recuperation for stop and go operations. And by the way, subscribe, because we are working on a recuperation episode for our ID4s
I
as
heard
well.
a rumor about that. Yeah, I bet
Yeah,
that'll be a good.
same here. Same here. I think
That's
it's in
good.
the works. And one fun fact, like ICE vehicles, usually when you look at the ICE vehicle consumption, they usually have better consumption on paper for highway than in the city. And that may be also the reason why the hybrid cars, like think about Prius, the EV part, the electric part of the Prius works mostly in lower speed stop and go traffic.
Okay.
And then the ICE car goes into the highway speeds.
Okay. Wow. All right.
All right. So now when we understanding these fundamentals, let's see how the power is consumed in the car. So for this chart is for cold climate, and number one is propulsion, meaning energy to push the car forward. So that's roughly 50%, roughly.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Now, another 20 to 30% here is the heating. Because remember,
Okay.
we talked that EVs are very efficient. And so if you want to heat either the cabin or the battery, you need to take the same energy that you use for propulsion for doing something else, like
Okay.
heating the cabin.
Because you don't have that 70 or 80% waste heat from the ICE engine that's exploding. You have to create your own heat with the battery. All right, I see. That
Exactly,
makes sense.
exactly. And you also are mentioning the heat pumps. Heat pump is something that is not available for the ID4 in the US, but there are other vehicles that have heat pump. Heat pump also for MEB is available in Canada or Europe.
Yeah.
And the beauty with heat pump is that it's more efficient. So it can take 1 kilowatt of kilowatt hour of energy and create up to 3 kilowatt hours of heat. So
Yeah.
it's way more efficient.
Okay. Wow. Oh, this is interesting. So you just said 50% was responsible for propulsion, but if you in the winter when things are say below 40,
It would be like, I don't know, 4 centigrades.
32, okay, all right. You're talking about a 20 to 30% range hit. And what you're saying is most of that here is heating the cabin and heating the battery.
Yes.
So in the ID4, if you don't have a heat pump, your cabin PTC heater, which is more efficient actually than a straight up resistive coil heater. I don't know all the engineering behind that, but can use up to 6 kilowatts. And then the battery heater, in addition, could use another 5 kilowatts. Now, they're both probably not using, they're not running at 11 kilowatts between the two of them, the whole time you're driving. But, even if it were 10 for 1 hour,
For the first hour, yeah.
right, you're talking about 10 kilowatt hours, which is 13% of our 77 kilowatt hour battery in our ID4.
Yeah.
And so in addition, the power output is reduced by BMS, that's the battery management system, in order to protect the battery, because at colder temperatures, the battery can form dendrites, which could cause shorts and things if you pull too much power. So they run that high voltage battery heater to keep it at a safe temperature. And that's the 5 kilowatts we're talking about. So yeah, even if it's only using half of that, it's still a significant hit to range.
Yes. So how could you influence both? Well, you could preheat the battery before you leave. So if you live in a space where you have level 2, or if you have a charger where your car sleeps with you, or where your car is while you're working, then you can
Okay.
preheat the battery before you go, because it helps to take the energy from the grid versus from your battery to preheat the battery. That's
Okay.
one. And two, obviously, if you're using direct heating, like heated steering wheel or heated seats,
Yeah.
that is much more efficient than running your cabin to 72, 74 Fahrenheit, or 22 degrees of Celsius in
I've read that as heating the person and not the cabin.
Exactly.
A lot less energy to heat up the person.
Exactly. Because if you're heating the cabin, then of course there is a lot of losses, right? When you think of, like, compared to a house, your car is not isolated as well as good, because it doesn't have double or triple glass panes. It doesn't have those like 6 or how many inches of insulation in the wall. It just simply does not, right?
Right. So maybe instead, that doesn't mean you need to be miserable in your car, but maybe you could run the heater at a lower temperature
Yeah.
and then keep your seat heat and your steering wheel heat
Yes.
on,
Yes.
you know,
Exactly.
and yeah, okay, great.
But be comfortable. If you know that there is enough chargers where you're going, and you're
Yeah,
doing well on time, there's like no need to conserve energy, right? And
right.
again,
Okay.
this is for winter only. In summer, the heat pump, or the compressor for AC is using also the high voltage battery, but it's not. It doesn't use as much energy as
Yeah.
the
It's much
heater
more
element.
efficient.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I think we've reached the conclusion. So we talked about EV efficiency, that it's way more efficient, 4 times more efficient than in internal combustion engine car.
Wow. Yeah,
We've
that's
also
amazing.
talked about the battery density, that is not as dense. You cannot store as much energy in the size and weight of a gasoline today.
Okay.
We've talked about why the aerodynamics and drag is important for EVs, because that was the next thing that automakers could go and improve.
Yeah.
And we know that the power that the car needs to pump out to push itself through the air is a cube of your speed.
Okay. So if I'm translating Jan's engineering slides here into layperson speak, I'd say those three things are: one, you might be tempted to think an EV is less efficient because it doesn't go as far, and that is not true at all. It's 5 times, 4 to 5 times more efficient. And the only thing holding it back is that the batteries don't have as much energy density as gasoline. So once we have whatever newfangled batteries they come out with, solid state or Mr. Fusion batteries, you've got much more efficiency, and maybe we can have a 2,000 mile EV. The second thing is, what can you do to increase your own efficiency? Well, don't drive 75 miles an hour. If you can drive 65 safely, then you should do that instead. That's to keep it under 100 kilometers an hour, or 60 to 65 miles an hour. Um, and that should really help your range. And then the last thing is, in the winter, see if you can heat yourself with your seat heater and not run the battery or the cabin
The
heater
cabin heater,
if
yeah,
you can help it. Yeah. It's all those things together can really, it's amazing what
make a difference.
yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for showing us the math behind all that. It's cool to know that, if you want to get into it, you can actually plug your numbers into that equation and figure it out. So,
Follow us on VWIDTalk podcast. We've talked about the next episode that would be about recuperation. So please subscribe so you don't miss it when it's released.
yeah. Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Thank you. Bye.